We will today be looking at the impact of climate change on agriculture and how same can be mitigated. Climate change simply connotes a prolonged change in the weather pattern. Now, wherever you're watching from around the world, there hardly is any field of human endeavor that climate change has not impacted. My guest is a development economist who has varied interest in agriculture. Please join me in welcome Dr. Emeka Okengwu. I hope I got that right.
You did get it right. Thank you very much.
Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. You are into different parts of agriculture. I know you're into cluster farming and what have you. But what can you make, or what do you make of the changes that we have seen, probably as recent as the last 20 years, as far as agriculture is concerned?
Well, I don't think it's not as recent as 20 years. I mean, the early warnings had as old as 40 or maybe more. Climate change is something that has been with us, is something that's going to be with us, is something that hasn't just suddenly happened.
That's right. We will actually talk about the early warning signs, because I want to find out how come, from all indications, it just met us where we are.
Well, it did, because at the point in time, the desert started expanding, and the first time a study was done around, the desert expansion was about 1974. Okay, that was the first time you started seeing communities around the desert having to move, based on what they call forced migration. And studies had predicted then that the desert at one time was going to be, taking more and more of the Sahel region. Today in Nigeria, we have about 4 kilometers of Nigerian land inside the desert, leading to the loss of over 12,000 kilometers of land across the 19, states of Nigeria. But you asked a question, how can it be managed, mitigated? But there are 2 ways. You just don't talk about mitigation. You also talk about adaptation. Okay, it's when you adapt, then you can begin to mitigate. And the strategies for adaptation is where this understanding, of what the issues are, come to play. Okay, adaptation is how do we now begin to live the new normal. Okay, now how do you now mitigate? Will be how do you stop, the further increment. Again, it begs for the question of how do you produce your food? Okay, because that's actually your challenge. If you're producing your food at the mercy of the forces, that has little or no control over the climate crisis, then you are at risk. Now, this is where I keep saying to you that adaptation is as important as mitigation. And then how other people are adapting to these things? They're adapting by now, developing new ways to be able to produce food.
Are we doing the same in our part of the world?
I don't think we are. And this is why you are talking about it being a very major challenge. And what very simple thing can we do? For instance, I'll give you a very typical example with 2 countries, Israel and South Africa, both with very seemingly, terrible, lands vis-a-vis fertility of the land. But yet, Israel, with its salty, soil, is producing for the whole region. South Africa, with only 13% of its land arable, is producing practically everything that you see in their stores all over the world. Okay, and what are they doing? They're introducing technology, into food production. Okay, as simple as the drip technology, as simple as water management, as simple as now having the proper understanding of science, of plants and animals, as simple as being able to know that what is very critical, is for you to be able to understand those things that make it impossible, for you or for your soil to be able to yield. They're introducing the GMOs. Some have argued, for it. Some have argued against it. But I keep saying that there are 2 kinds of GMOs. There are the GMOs that are soil, based, that you need to introduce into the earth to be able to make certain that your earth can be able to give you the best yield. There are GMOs that you do in the labs. So if we confuse ourselves with the GMOs that you produce from the labs, you will lose. Trust me on this. The gains of the GMOs that are driven by technology that allows your land, as bad as it is, to be able to give you the best. On a last note, China has recovered over 30% of its desert. Okay, it's something that should interest you. And they are planting cassava and planting every other thing that are exporting, into Nigeria. So it is all about understanding the role of science, technology, and innovation in adaptation and mitigation of a crisis created by climate change.
As it was, sir, you talked about the place of technology. You talked about the need for adaptation. You talked about the need for taking a cue from what others are doing,
Yes.
that are probably not even as blessed as we are,
Yes.
as far as land and whatever is concerned.
Oh.
Being somebody who is in the field,
Yes.
are you seeing any attempts, probably on the part of government, via policy, towards achieving this end?
Yeah, I can tell you. As for policy, there are quite some interesting government policies. I must give it to them. However, policy is not enough. Okay, policy is just like a wish list, where the drilling down, okay, begins to drive you towards shovel-ready projects. Is when you get to the point of projects and actions. Now, you must be able to close that loop to be able to have what you call a PPA. Look behind you. That's cactus.
That's right.
To some people in Nigeria, that's a fence.
True. Where I come from,
You know
this
what that
is how we fence homes in our villages.
This is raw materials for vegan leather. You can make pure organic leather from this material. So what is important for us is not to look at the government policy that says, oh, we must be able to feed our people. Okay, remember that we can also now play in the organic world. Okay, I just saw a video of oil, pure organic oil being made from avocado. And 2 minutes after I saw that, video, I sent it to my wife. And probably next time you come here, I'll be showing you oil, 100% organic oil, healthy for every kind of situation or health, status, in Nigeria, made out of avocado. And then imagine from where you come from, the small black pears.
Yeah.
Okay.
Italy, the one called Italy.
Italy.
Yes.
Okay. Imagine if we were able to start producing oil
from Italy.
You know the value process. You know how many people you can get out of poverty. So while we talk about land as the basis of agriculture, why don't we talk about technology? Okay, as the driver. Okay, as the tomorrow of agriculture.
This technology seems so far from us, doctor. That's my worry.
Well, it is here. You'll be shocked that where you also come from, the only functional greenhouses I know in Nigeria are from Jos. The potatoes that were being produced in Jos were produced from a research institute. Okay, it was planted like every other place, but when you set up that, research institute in Jos, they now multiply the production. So part of the challenge we have is that we're not putting technology at the heart of our agriculture. Now imagine if we are planting this commercially. Now, how many people know that the best grade pharmaceutical starch comes from yam? Okay, now so the yam industry, if exploded, if driven well, can actually drive our pharmaceutical sector. Imagine how much money you're going to be saving. How many people know that part of what it is, our energy needs, can be met by cassava? That the output of cassava, getting it to become products of bioethanol plants, can actually support your petroleum mix and bring down the price, of PMX, just like methanol, can do. So it's all about understanding the science, of the challenges of climate change, which is, I think, at the heart of this conversation.
Can we do this without mechanization?
Mechanization is a result, is an output of, is a demand of volume. Okay, it is when you want to grow in scale. That's when you start talking about mechanization. What is critical is being able to, first and foremost, fertilize that land. And fertilizing the land for whatever purposes will be requiring science. Okay, understanding the value process, creating the value that can drive your volumes will be requiring technology. It is in between both of them that in now creating this volume or mass that you'll be requiring mechanization.
Talking about fertilizing the land, some experts will tell you we should go the way of regenerative agriculture.
Regeneration, fine, very beautiful, but there are also crops that you can grow, in those areas, like this cactus. There's a lot of desert farming and desert agriculture. So it's about understanding what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, who needs to do it, okay, and then what you require to be able to make certain that you get.
Well, looking at what you just said, it appears nobody is taking responsibility because nobody is really at the fulcrum or nobody is willing to lead. I mean, permit me, I may be wrong.
I think it's for us to be able to, think for every incentive or policy you've put into place. How do you do what you call a proof of concept? How are you able to make certain that this can work? Now, you don't just do one policy fits all. Okay, where you come from in just, we could just have a policy of cactus. Okay, where some other person comes from. We could even have a policy of snail farming. We could have a policy of horticulture, and then begin to find those instruments, those programs that can be able to support it. Just not funding, but most feasibilities, getting people together to be able to now do what is needed. I'll give a typical example again. Everywhere you go in northern Nigeria, neem trees are everywhere. How many people know that neem is probably the most efficacious fertilizer, pesticides, insecticides that you can ever get? How many people know that the best chocolates and creams are made from shea butter that grow in the wild in Nigeria?
How will they know? I mean, if nobody tells them,
Well,
how
I'm
will
saying,
they know?
I'm saying,
you're saying
I'm
it
saying
now.
it now.
How many times do you get to say this?
And I need Part Agro to take this to the next level. You guys talk to the policy people.
You know, Doctor, as we prepare to round up, I'll want to find out from you, what do you make of the Nigerian agricultural sector? I don't want to use the word subsector. What do you make of that sector probably in another 20, 25 years?
In the next 25 years, if we keep talking about the farmer and not the farm, okay, we're going to be where we are. If government and the people who are supposed to be involved do not sit together and develop a holistic framework that captures from A to Z of the demand of what we want to do now, and then be able to create subsectors, the food crops must be a different and completely segregated substructure. And then you can begin to now introduce what's needed for each of these sectors. For apiculture, what you might be needing as infrastructure might not be the same thing like you have for animal husbandry, meaning that you might even need to create, if you may, for me, a different system, okay, a different organizational and administrative system for your apiculture. Right, so if you don't do this and you're lumping everything together, the experts in apiculture could become Ministry of Agriculture. What happens? The experts in aquaculture, every other part suffers. Like everybody thinks when you talk about agriculture, the first thing that enters into people's head
is crop production.
Oh, you said it.
Well, you just answered my question. I want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time.